Hi, you good people. I'm Shaka Cunningham, and I just got back from visiting Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and it was very nice. It was a lot different from the country that I typically visit in Honduras, which is Roatan. Roatan is an island of Honduras. But I went to the capital this time to visit a friend that I actually met through my YouTube and my travel blog. She lives over in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and she's a teacher over there. And so we had been communicating back and forth for like over a year now. She was always like, "Oh, you need to come to Tegucigalpa to see how it is here. I love it here, blah, blah, blah." So after a lot of planning and a lot of our schedule planning, I made the trip for a weekend. And before I get into showing you all some of what I experienced in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, I had the craziest plane ride ever getting there. As of lately, I have been very apprehensive about flying, and I have flown so many times before. I flew to Paris. That was my longest flight ever. It was 8 hours. And I flew into Atlanta from my home city. And then from Atlanta, I flew into Tegucigalpa. And it was like 3 hours and about 20 minutes. And I was really dreading those 3 hours, for real. Because I was just like, oh man, I don't want to be in the air that long. But interestingly, I was more nervous for my city to Atlanta's flight than I was for my Atlanta to Tegucigalpa flight. But anyway, got on the flight and it was good. And I was sitting next to a young lady who happened to be in the medical field that, such as I am, just a different area. And, you know, Delta, they allow you to view movies and other things like that while you're flying. I think it's for international flights. I'm not exactly sure. Or certain flights over a certain time. But they also show you like the flight tracker. So I was like, oh, when is this plane going to safely land? Okay. I had already heard about the landing into Tegucigalpa. I heard that it was pretty rough because the landing strip is so short, and so when it lands hard, and people clap. Literally, they clap when it lands safely. But I wasn't too nervous about that. But anyway, I was watching a movie. I went to sleep, waiting on the plane to finally land. And while I was asleep, I started feeling sick. Started feeling very sick. I started feeling faint, and I started feeling my body go hot and cold. And I was like, oh my gosh. I've had this feeling before. Why am I having it now on the plane in another country? Whew. So, make a long story short, I passed out on the plane. Yes, I passed out on the plane. And thankfully, the lady who was next to me was a nurse. Because when I passed out, apparently I passed out. But I passed out on the seats. I was smart to remember not to pass out on the floor. Passed out on the seats. And it was crazy because I just remember feeling very wet and all over. And I remember the young lady lifting my legs up in the air, and I remember her like rubbing up under my nose with an alcohol swab. And I remember the flight attendants asking, do you have seizures? And I was in and out, and I was like, no seizure, no, nothing. And then I started hearing them say, how many more minutes do we have until landing? Okay, here it is. I'm on a plane. I'm about to land on one of the most dangerous landing strips in the world. And I'm not feeling good. And then there are people up trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And I overheard one of the flight attendants telling the other passengers not to leave the plane before the paramedics get on the plane for me. all in all, I started coming back to. The paramedics did come on a plane, and they did, you know, check me out, and I knew what was going on. My blood pressure just dropped, and it was just crazy. So when they took my blood pressure, and then they also took my pulse and my O2 sats, and I looked at the digital display, and I was looking, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting better. My pulse is increasing, and this is good. But they wouldn't let me out their sight, and I really appreciated Delta for that. They were very concerned about me. And I remember when I was coming back to health, I was like, gosh, I'm so wet, and you know, I'm just like, why? You know, I'm so sweaty. And I said, even my pants are sweaty. I'm just sweaty. And the flight attendant was like, no, baby. That's not sweat. You wet yourself. And you all talk about crying, tears. I was just like, are you serious? My first time here. What? I mean, what is going on? I peed on myself. How did this happen? But the flight attendants and the staff, they showed me so much concern. They were like, you know, who's picking you up? We're not letting you out of our sight. And they didn't. So they escorted me off the plane in a wheelchair. I was met with the doctor in the airport. And lo and behold, I met the doctor where everybody was going through customs. And everybody was looking at me like, what's going on with this girl? And I was like, oh, man, no. But anyway, the best part about that whole experience was that I was able to be, I was escorted up to the front of the line because it was a long line for customs. As you know, if you all travel internationally, you all know about customs. So got to customs, you know, passport and all that good stuff, you know. And I was like, you know, you all, I have to use the restroom. Oh, God. I did not know how bad I peed on myself, y'all. I peed on myself. It was like the biggest thing ever on my pants. And it was just so embarrassing. But I had an extra pair of pants, and my friend finally came to get me, and the paramedics told her, you know, let her rest today. She can't eat anything heavy, no greasy foods, blah, blah, blah. And I did rest because I started feeling a little queasy again once I got over to my friend's home. But after that, I was all good. So all that to say, I learned my lesson about being so nervous before a flight, and also just preparing well for a flight, because flying can be stressful, especially with some of the current events that's been going on with flying. So I know now just to trust in God. This is going to be okay. Focus on my destination. Just focus on my destination. It's going to be all right. But anyway, I wanted to show you all a few clips of my Tegucigalpa, Honduras trip. So hope you all enjoy. Take care. Bye.
It's a dance song. It's a bachata.
Well, I should have took the hardest. Alright, I'm going to show you all just a little bit of Tegucigalpa, Honduras.